Well, the decision we've all been waiting for appears to have finally come down. Sue L. Robinson, the disciplinary officer in the Deshaun Watson case, is now ruling that Deshaun Watson should be suspended for the first 6 games of this upcoming season. Let's analyze the suspension. 6 games was really at the level that the Browns were comfortable with when they went into the trade talks and eventually got the trade done with the Houston Texans. The Browns' original thought was they could handle a 6-game suspension, with the thought at the time of the trade being that maybe there was an appeal process, they could get that knocked down to 4 games. But 6 games was the line in the sand that they kind of drew for themselves that they would be comfortable with. After the trade, things, of course, changed. And then there was talk, of course, that the NFL had dug in and wanted to go with a year-long suspension, an indefinite suspension. And that was a real problem for the Browns. So, too, was the number that was being floated around that 8 games was possibly going to be the ruling by Sue L. Robinson. But instead, she's come up with a 6-game suspension. And very, very interesting, no fine has been issued to Watson. Over the weekend, and really through the last couple of weeks, there have been settlement talks going on between the Watson camp and the NFL to no avail. The NFL's last offer was a 12-game suspension with an $8 million fine. Watson's camp dug in and said, no, we're not accepting that. The best the Watson camp came up with was a suspension ranging between 6 and 8 games. So as the ruling has come down that it is 6 games, it appears the Watson camp right now would be the happier camp in the ruling of Sue L. Robinson in the aftermath of that. Now, we're not out of the woods yet as far as this being complete, because the NFL will have 3 days to file an appeal. If they appeal the decision, then it would go to Commissioner Roger Goodell, who could up the suspension or who could leave it alone and not file an appeal. Now, it's interesting, on late Sunday night, the NFL Players Association, arm in arm with the Watson camp, came out with a statement saying, no matter what the Robinson ruling is, we will not appeal. And we would call on the NFL to do the same. Although the NFL so far has not given a response to that claim, and they have not come down with a decision as to whether or not they're going to appeal or if they're going to let the Sue Robinson decision go. The NFLPA really put the pressure on the NFL, kind of called them out, that this new way of deciding disciplinary type of punishment, going to a disciplinary officer like Sue L. Robinson, she should be the one that decides it, and the NFL should abide by that ruling and stay out of it at that point in time. But again, there is an opportunity for the NFL to appeal this 6-game suspension decision and try and up the game total, but we'll wait to see if that happens. The term, again, is they have 3 days to file that appeal. Now, if you're playing the numbers game, 6 games into the Browns season, when would Watson be able to step into the Browns huddle and become their starting quarterback in a regular season game? That would put us to October 23rd, when the Browns would be on the road in Baltimore, an AFC North game against the Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium. Incidentally, on the football side, what a game that would be, right? Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, in Watson's first game as the Browns quarterback, that's got a lot of sizzle. So, too, does his first home game, which would be the following week, which would be Halloween night on a Monday night game against the Cincinnati Bengals, a huge AFC North game. Joe Burrow and the defending AFC champions coming into town to play Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. That's why the 6-game line was so important for the Browns and Watson. If it had gone to 8 games, the Browns really would have to have looked at their quarterback situation and say, can we get through 8 games with Jacoby Brissett as our quarterback? 6 games is easier to take. 8 games, then you're talking about putting the entire season in jeopardy because you don't know where you would be at 8 games into the year record-wise. Could you make a run still at the division title or a possible wild card playoff spot? 6 games is easier for them to take. All day long, we'll have reaction here on WKYC.com and on Channel 3 News coming up at 5, 6, 7, and 11. The situation is fluid, but for right now, it appears as though a bit of a victory for the Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson, getting 6 games on a suspension, not an indefinite suspension, not a year-long suspension, not an 8-game suspension, and no fine so far. One other point that's interesting in the case. On the civil side of things, remember, there were 4 outstanding civil suits still pending against Deshaun Watson over the weekend. 3 of those have been settled. So now there is 1 civil suit remaining and is pending, and you have to wonder if that will be settled sometime soon. Again, we'll be in Berea all day long as the Browns are back on the practice field at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Once again, Deshaun Watson suspended 6 games pending the decision by Sue L. Robinson, the NFL disciplinary officer. I'm Jim Donovan. Thanks for joining us at WKYC.com.